You've bought the planner. Actually, not the planner, like 14 of them. You've tried time blocking, you color coded your whole life, you ate the frog, and somehow by 10 a.m., you are done for the day. You're spent. And you still think the problem is you. Let me say this really clearly: discipline is not your problem. Let's dive into it.
Yeah, yeah, yes. Yo, yo, it's Alyece, say it right, no cap. ADHD CEO, yeah, we run this track. Systems that slap, brains built different. We make sales in our sleep, yeah, the hustle's efficient. This ain't fluff, nah, this is strategy raw for the ADHD. Minds breaking every law. Hit subscribe, don't miss a single show. We're running on dopamine, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
All right, so you've been told your whole life to try harder, be consistent, build better habits. But the truth that no one says out loud is that you cannot discipline your ADHD brain into a brain you don't. That's like trying to grow taller, like on purpose. It makes no sense. ADHD brains don't run on the same type of fuel as neurotypical brains. Your brain runs on dopamine. We talk about this all the time. I wish I could get paid just for saying the word dopamine, seriously. And not just a little. Like you're already starting with less of it. It is proven, it is science. So when someone says just be more disciplined, what they're really saying is just override your biology. Right? Neurology is not that important. And that's not strategy. Okay. That's setting you up to fail. And so I started this episode out by talking about the planner graveyard. So let's talk about that a little bit deeper. Okay. Because I know you have one. Everybody has one. That drawer, that stack, that shelf full of planners that you were so sure would fix everything. You bought them, you got excited, you set them up, you probably even bought a new set of pens for them so that your writing would be neater. Day one, perfect. You put stickers in them, maybe even. Day two, decent, right? And okay, I stuck to most of it. Day three, gone. Not because you don't care, but because you didn't get what you needed to keep going from that planner. And it's the same thing with time blocking, right? You made the perfect schedule, everything had a place, and by 8:30, it was already off for the day. Not because you're just chaotic, but because your brain doesn't follow time, it follows energy and stimulation. And so I want to break this down even further. And I talk about this a lot in my book, Flow First Thinking. But here's the piece that changes everything. Okay, dopamine is not the reward chemical, it is the motivation chemical. And so that means if your brain doesn't feel enough dopamine, it doesn't even start. So when you are staring at your laptop, knowing exactly what to do and still not doing it, that's not laziness. That's a brain that doesn't have enough fuel to begin. And here's where it gets even more wild is you can research something random for 6 hours. Locked in, focused, fully there, but you can't send one email. Same brain, different dopamine triggers. And that is the part that no one explains to you. And I see this a lot in my kids as well, especially my daughter who's ADHD. She can focus on something for hours. She loves drawing. She's super creative, super artistic. Draw for hours. Okay. But the minute I ask her to go check the mail, she forgot what I asked her to do as soon as she stepped out the door. She comes back, she asks me again, and then she's like, oh, do I have to? It is not the same, right? It's not the same thing. She's not interested in that. There's no dopamine for that, no reward for that. And so discipline fails because discipline works when your brain already has some sort of fuel. And if you are not interested in what you're doing, you don't have the energy to do that because our energy is very much tied to our emotions. Your brain is not starting with fuel, you're starting on an empty tank. But when you're interested, something's interest based to you and you're passionate about it or you want to learn about it, shiny object syndrome, whatever you want to call it, your body, your emotions are on the rise. You're excited about something new. And so your body gets this wave of energy. But when you try to force it, you burn out a lot faster. And that's why systems like eat the frog doesn't necessarily work for you. You use all your energy on one hard thing, and then the rest of the day is gone. And so you didn't build momentum, you drained your tank. So I want to give you a couple quick tips on ways that you can kind of build that momentum, build that dopamine. And I'm pulling these straight from my book, Flow First Thinking. I'm super excited because the audiobook is almost finished, but I recommend you grab a hard copy as well. There's hardbacks, paperbacks. I'll have all the information in the show notes. But the L in my flow first thinking system is stands for link the boring with the stimulating. And you probably already do this in some ways and you may not even realize it, but like watching Netflix while you're folding laundry, okay? Because what people don't tell you about boring tasks is they don't get done by wanting them to be done. They don't get done by scheduling them. They definitely don't get done by forcing yourself. Boring tasks get done when your brain gets something it wants in the process of doing them. That's it. That's the secret. And so rewards don't work after ADHD brains. We do this with our kids, right? Once you clean your room, you get this, right? There's a reward after. That doesn't work for us usually. Your brain can't wait that long or doesn't want to wait that long. Delayed gratification requires impulse control, future focused thinking, consistent dopamine releases. And I'm not saying this has never happened. If you're a woman like me and, you know, depend 30s, 40s, whatever, you've probably been masking the majority of your life. And so you forced it. But that's also why you always felt so drained and so burnt out is the masking. If dopamine comes after, your brain ends up checking out during the process. And so there is a process called temporal building. There's a lot of different ways you can do this, but I just want to give you a few quick ones, okay? Because there's three primary types of linking that I talk about in the book. Type one is dopamine pairing, and this is pairing a boring task with something that produces that dopamine. And this is that example of folding laundry while you watch Netflix. The boring task stays boring, but your brain's getting dopamine from something and it's pairing with it. So it cooperates. The second type is called temporal building. And this is really about riding that momentum from a stimulating task into a boring task. And so the way this works is you do something that naturally produces dopamine first. Then, while your brain still has that momentum, you kind of slide into the boring task. And so, depending on what builds dopamine for you, for me, I love to write content. So, I will, for example, sit down at my desk, I'll write content, really exciting, dopamine hit. And then, while my brain is still engaged, I immediately will schedule the content because that is boring for me. Just copy, paste, guys, scheduling. I don't take a break in between because if I do, my brain will stop being interested in getting the scheduling done. I don't reward myself first. I ride the wave, and that works. Another way works is, you know, temporal building works best for a boring task when it's like 10 minutes or less because that wave can only last so long. But another example. So maybe there's a show that I've been into, right? I've been watching on TV. I'm so excited. There's a commercial break, which depending on what streaming platform you have, Hulu has a minute and 30-second commercials. So I sit down, I watch my show, and on the minute and a half commercials, I get up and I move laundry, or maybe I load the dishwasher or something. It's almost like a race. Like, okay, can I get this done before the commercial's over? And I'm riding the wave because I'm getting that reward of watching that show. Type three is batching. Okay, and this is where you pair all your boring tasks together on the same day, the same time slot with something dopamine pairing. So instead of spreading all your boring tasks across the week, batch them all together and then pair that entire batch with one strong dopamine source. So, like for me, every Monday is admin day. Monday afternoon, I go through invoicing, filing, email organization, expense tracking, all those things. Instead of doing them daily, I do them all at the same time. And I usually listen to my favorite podcast while I'm doing that. So I'm binging the new episode of the podcast, but I don't do admin every day of the week. I only have to motivate myself to do this boring task once per week instead of every day. And everyone's dopamine triggers are different. What works for me might not work for you, but a lot of common Dopamine triggers are music, podcasts, movement, novelty, social, rewards. If I've been avoiding going through my DMs or my message requests, which isn't typical, but depending upon what platform, and, I get a lot of DMs about like, oh, this collab would be perfect for you, or we'd love to feature you. And then there's a big chunky price, right? I'm like, "Ugh, I don't even want to read all these. Like, this is annoying." So I will go on a walk while I do that, right? There's movement involved. And so I'm keeping my brain engaged, I'm getting the task done, and I'm keeping my body engaged. So if discipline isn't the answer, you know, dopamine is. And you have to start building systems that actually match that. Again, this is what I break down in flow first thinking, and I work on this with my students a lot, especially doing those tasks in your business that you just avoid doing. Because once you understand this, everything shifts. You are not broken. You just have been using the wrong playbook. Again, I've got all the information on the book in the show notes for you. I recommend you start with the F, finding your spark times. I've also got a free spark time tracker. I will log that in the show notes for you as well. But it's so easy for us to just make a list of 1,000 things and be like, oh, I just don't have the motivation to do any of this. Motivation will never work for you. And until you realize that, you will continue to feel behind and unfulfilled. As always, if you got any value out of this episode at all, leave me a review on the podcast. It is the best compliment you can give. Take a screenshot of you listening to this, throw it in your stories, tag me at socially.awesome. Shoot me a DM on IG and be like, yo, Alyece, okay, this is what I've been doing and it's working. Or, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like, what pairing task? I want to chat with you about this. This is not something that was super easy for me to figure out. This is years and years of research, and you're not alone. So, until next time, make it simple, make it social, and make it awesome.